Calm before the smoke. The mountains of North Carolina had a way of pressing silence into the bones. Marcus Ellison had grown to appreciate that quiet. No sirens, no radios, no adrenaline boiling under the skin. Just wind through pine needles, the occasional snap of a branch, and the lazy croak of frogs near the edge of his private lake. His cabin, 2 stories of hand-stained cedar and stone, sat nestled on the outskirts of the Briar Ridge community, a gated neighborhood carved into the Blue Ridge slopes. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect a retired SWAT sergeant to settle, especially one who looked like Marcus. 6'4", black, broad-shouldered with a beard like polished coal and eyes that had seen too much to bother blinking at suburban posturing. He liked the quiet, but more than that, he liked the routine. Every morning, he brewed a French press of dark roast so strong it could peel paint. He walked the border of his property, boots crunching gravel, Glock on his hip out of habit more than necessity. Then he hit the porch swing, fed his German Shepherd, Ranger, and read a paperback, usually something from Clancy or Grisham. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Simple. No more breaching doors. No more funerals. Once a month, though, it got loud. That's when his old unit, what was left of them, came up for what they jokingly called therapy with ribs. Some had lost limbs. Some had lost marriages. All had lost pieces of themselves in places with names they didn't speak around civilians. But around the grill, with beer sweating on the table and old jokes flying across the fire pit, they got to feel whole again. The next one was in a few days. This time it was more than just a catch-up. It marked 10 years since Operation Smoke Veil, an op that nearly ended them all in a hostage rescue gone sideways in Juarez. Everyone who was still standing had RSVP'd. They were bringing families. Kids. Hell, even Commander Ruiz was flying in from Texas with his prosthetic leg custom painted in the American flag. But Briar Ridge had changed since Marcus moved in. When he first bought the cabin, the HOA had seemed like a formality, just some white collars pushing papers. But lately, they'd gotten aggressive. A new president had taken over, Sandra Whitmore, all pearls and lipstick and tight smiles that didn't reach her eyes. She'd been pushing community standards hard, fines for unapproved landscaping, citations for porch flags, even warnings about excessive noise from homes hosting more than 4 cars in the driveway. At first, Marcus shrugged it off. Let them bark. But then came the letter. Taped, not mailed, to his front door, in bold black font. Mr. Ellison, your upcoming gathering violates several Briar Ridge ordinances, including noise limitations, parking constraints, and unauthorized food service. We advise cancellation. Further action may be taken if compliance is not observed. Briar Ridge HOA Enforcement Committee. He read it twice, then a third time. Unauthorized food service? It wasn't a damn food truck. It was him and a smoker he built with his own hands, slow-roasting brisket for his brothers. Marcus crumpled the notice and tossed it into the fireplace without lighting it. Ranger wagged his tail from the rug as if to say good boy. He didn't bring it up when he called Ruiz to confirm flight times. No point in spreading the stink. But the feeling stuck. That old itch in the back of his skull, a sixth sense he never lost from years of room clearing in hostile cities, was back. Something wasn't right. Briar Ridge wasn't openly racist. No one dropped slurs or hung Confederate flags. But Marcus had seen the sideways glances when his friends came over. When Jose's Escalade idled a little too long at the gate, or when Dee, a black woman with pink dreads and full-sleeve tattoos, helped Marcus carry in a new smoker. The glances were always followed by clipped emails from the HOA asking residents to be mindful of the neighborhood atmosphere. He noticed that those emails never came when the McKennas hosted their monthly poker nights with 10 BMWs blocking half the cul-de-sac. Nor when the Whitmore's son threw a graduation party that left beer cans in the road and 2 neighbors with broken mailboxes. It wasn't about rules. It was about control. And some people didn't like that Marcus Ellison couldn't be controlled. Still, he wasn't looking for trouble. He just wanted his barbecue, his people, his music, and his peace. But something about that letter, how it showed up without warning, how vague the threats were, gnawed at him. The HOA didn't want this barbecue happening. He didn't know why yet, but his gut said they weren't finished. Marcus stood from the swing, cracked his back, and walked down to the shed to check the propane tanks and restock charcoal. The air smelled of pine sap and slow-burning tension. He whispered to himself, "Let him come." Ranger barked once, like an amen. Fire under the coals. The next morning brought with it the scent of dew-drenched grass and a gentle fog that rolled down from the mountaintops, curling around the edges of Marcus's cabin like a shy guest. The sun hadn't yet risen fully, but Marcus was already out back, seasoning a slab of brisket the size of a suitcase. His hands moved with the kind of practiced calm you didn't earn from recipes. You earned it from repetition, from knowing exactly how long to let that smoke soak into the meat without letting the fire eat it alive. He was in his element. Ranger, tongue lolling, paced nearby, eyes scanning the woods for squirrels or invisible enemies. One never knew in Marcus's world. Marcus paused, stretching his back. There was something sacred about the quiet before a big gathering. The way the forest held its breath. He imagined the others were prepping too, Ruiz probably double-checking his prosthetics torque settings, deep-hacking the homemade cornbread she refused to share with anyone but the squad, and Trey, who never showed up without enough whiskey to embalm a buffalo. He smiled. But the smile faded as he spotted a shape moving down the road through the mist. A familiar one. A silver Lexus, too clean for a mountain road, rolled to a halt at the edge of Marcus's gravel driveway. The window eased down and revealed a tightly painted smile and coral lipstick. Sandra Whitmore. Marcus wiped his hands on a towel and walked over, slow and polite. "Morning, Mrs. Whitmore." "Mr. Ellison," she replied, her voice sugared but brittle. "Out early, I see." "I live here," he said, with just enough edge to make her blink. Sandra ignored it and lifted a printed paper from her passenger seat. "I wanted to deliver this in person. The board had an emergency session last night. After reviewing the size of your upcoming gathering, it's been reclassified as an event, which requires an HOA permit and liability insurance." Marcus took the paper, but didn't look at it. "This is a private get-together on private property," he said. "I'm not charging admission, not inviting the whole damn town. Just a few friends." Sandra's smile never cracked. "We have to be consistent. We've had problems before, you understand. Traffic. Noise. Unruly behavior." Marcus raised a brow. "This community's been pretty quiet as far as I've seen. Or are we only talking about problems when it's my guests?" There was a flicker in her eye. Annoyance. A glimmer of something deeper. She leaned forward slightly. "You must understand, Mr. Ellison. We work very hard to maintain a certain image here in Briar Ridge. A peaceful, orderly atmosphere." Marcus stared at her. "Yeah, I've seen what that image looks like." The engine hummed softly, the only sound between them. Sandra straightened. "I hope you'll reconsider. We'd hate to have to involve outside authorities." Marcus didn't say a word, just stepped back and let her window roll up. The Lexus disappeared into the fog like a ghost that smelled faintly of citrus and condescension. Back inside, Marcus dropped the new notice onto the kitchen counter next to the old one. The wording was legalistic, but vague. Excessive vehicle presence, potential for nuisance, unauthorized entertainment equipment. Every phrase carefully crafted to sound neutral, but every sentence aimed squarely at him. It wasn't just about noise. It never had been. He glanced out the window toward his neighbors. Across the ridge, whitewashed cottages with manicured lawns lined the hillside like teeth. The McKennas were already walking their dog, an oversized labradoodle named Muffin. The Branleys' Tesla eased out of their driveway in a whisper. Marcus had lived in plenty of places, military bases, cities, rural outposts, but Briar Ridge had a different kind of unspoken order. One that came with smiles and cookies and carefully coded language. A neighborhood where you could be surrounded by people every day and still be treated like a stranger. The few other black residents, he could count them on one hand, kept to themselves. Asian families were tolerated, as long as their yards looked like magazine covers. Latinos? You only saw them if they worked in landscaping or deliveries. That was the quiet rule here. Presence was fine. Power was not. Marcus's presence and his guests, diverse, loud, military, was a threat. Not because they were dangerous, but because they didn't ask permission to exist. He poured himself a glass of cold water, then stood by the open window. A drone buzzed faintly overhead. Not high like a commercial one. Lower. Close. He stepped onto the porch just in time to see a small quadcopter dip over his roofline, its tiny camera glinting in the sun. He pulled out his phone and recorded it. Let them know he was watching, too. The barbecue wasn't just a party now. It was a stand. Smoke on the ridge. Saturday arrived like a promise. Sunlight filtered through the pines and ribbons, casting gold onto the porch planks, where Ranger lay stretched and half-dozing. A thin trail of hickory smoke rose from Marcus's barrel smoker, slow and steady, like incense from a sacred fire. The smell was rich, brisket, rubbed down the night before, now sweating in its own juices under a steel lid worn with battle scars and soot. By mid-morning, the first cars began rolling in. Trey was first, stepping out of a matte black Dodge Charger, wearing sunglasses and a grin so wide it nearly split his scarred cheek. "Man, you still live up here like a damn hermit or what?" he shouted. Marcus opened his arms and hugged him hard enough to crack ribs. "Still better than the desert. And I got good meat and cold beer, so quit whining." The reunion had begun. One by one, the squad arrived. Ruiz, limping on his prosthetic, but somehow still the loudest of them all. Dee, blasting old-school hip-hop through her truck speakers as she unpacked trays of cornbread and macaroni pie. Malik and Jean brought their kids, who ran through the woods laughing, chasing bubbles and dragonflies with sticks like swords. Even old Lieutenant Carter showed up, grizzled and grumpy, holding a bottle of single malt like it was a newborn baby. For hours, laughter echoed off the hills. Smoke curled upward from the grill like a ribbon of defiance. Beer bottles clinked, stories got taller, and music drifted out over the trees. Nina Simone, Sam Cooke, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Johnny Cash, Tupac. All genres, all people, just as the squad had always been. To anyone who didn't understand them, it might have looked chaotic, unruly, loud. To Marcus, it was peace. Until the SUV pulled up. It was nearly dusk when the black Chevy Tahoe came up the gravel road. No markings, no lights, but too new, too clean to belong out here. The music was down low by then, folks sitting around the fire pit swapping stories, so the engine's approach was heard before it was seen. Two men stepped out. Uniforms. Dark blue. Badges on their chests. Something about them immediately felt off. Marcus narrowed his eyes. The build of their gear didn't match. One had a utility belt that looked like it came from a Halloween store. The other had a gun holster that didn't even snap shut. Their boots were clean. Not a speck of dust on them. No local department drove out here, without dirt kissing their cuffs. "Evenin', folks," the taller one said, hand on his belt like he was John Wayne. "We received a complaint about a disturbance. Too many vehicles. Loud music. Smells like unauthorized grilling." Marcus stood slowly. "You with the sheriff's department?" The man nodded. "Yep. You in charge here?" "I am." The second man, shorter and skinnier, fidgeted with his radio. "Gonna need to shut this down, sir. This here's a violation of multiple residential codes." Ruiz, standing behind Marcus, muttered, "That radio ain't transmitting to anything." Marcus stepped forward. "What station you out of?" "County," the tall one said too quickly. "Which one?" Marcus asked, tone calm but sharp. The man blinked. "Briar Ridge District." Marcus smiled coldly. "There is no Briar Ridge District. This community falls under Ridgeview County." "Try again." Silence. No badges moved. No radios crackled. Malik shifted his stance slightly, SWAT posture. Dee pulled out her phone and started recording. "You got ID?" Marcus asked. The taller one bristled. "We're officers, sir." "Then you'll have no problem showing your credentials." The man hesitated. The badge was real metal, but the number was off. Marcus had worked with enough law enforcement to know badge numbers didn't start with double zeros in this county. "I'll give you one more chance," Marcus said. "You show me real ID, or I start treating you like impersonators. You don't want that. Behind him, 6 former SWAT officers were rising from their seats. No shouting, no rushing, just trained silence. It was the shorter man who broke. "Let's go, man," he muttered. "This ain't worth it." They turned, fast-walking back to their vehicle. Dee kept filming. Jean snapped a photo of the license plate. Marcus noted the car had no official plates, just a dealership logo and expired tags. They drove off, tires spitting gravel. For a moment, nobody said a word. Then Carter let out a low whistle. "They really tried that on you?" Marcus nodded. "Not just me. All of us." "Who were they?" one of the kids asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He stared down the road where the SUV had disappeared. "People who think a badge is just something you can buy," he said finally. "And that we'd be too dumb or too scared to notice." Ruiz chuckled dryly. "Bad choice." The fire popped. The stars began to prick the sky. Nobody packed up. Nobody left. In fact, Dee cranked the music just a little louder. And Marcus, slow and steady, returned to his smoker, lifting the lid to check the brisket. The smoke rose higher. Wolves at the gate. The next morning brought with it a new kind of stillness. Not the peaceful sort Marcus had grown to cherish, but the kind that comes after a warning shot. Clouds hung low over the ridgeline. Dew clung to the cabin deck, as if the forest itself had paused, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus sat on the porch swing, sipping black coffee, his face as unreadable as stone. He was replaying every detail from the night before: the uniforms, the bogus badges, the polished SUV, the awkward deflection when he called their bluff. It hadn't been a random stunt. It was coordinated. Across the ridge, a few of the neighbors were already out. Mr. Conway was walking his terrier. Mrs. Branley was pruning her already perfect roses. No one waved. But one thing had changed. Parked outside his cabin was a Ridgeview County Sheriff's cruiser. Real badge. Real deputy. Deputy Calhoun was young, maybe 30, freckled, pale, but with sharp eyes. He'd responded to Marcus's late-night report like a professional, asked smart questions, and confirmed what Marcus suspected. No deputies had been dispatched to Briar Ridge. Those men were imposters. And worse, their vehicle had been traced back to a private security firm, Sable Shield, out of Charlotte. A firm with a reputation for discreet enforcement in high-value real estate developments. And the owner? A holding company tied to Sandra Whitmore's husband. By noon, the story was out. Ruiz had forwarded footage to a friend in the Charlotte media. Dee posted her video to social media with a caption that read, "Fake cops tried to shut down a Black Vets barbecue. Picked the wrong SWAT team." The clip went viral in under an hour. By 3 p.m., news vans lined the gated entrance to Briar Ridge. And this time, the HOA couldn't control the narrative. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't even speak to the reporters who camped outside his gravel drive. He gave a single, quiet statement to the county sheriff's investigators and let the truth speak for itself. The headlines the next day told the story. HOA caught hiring fake police to intimidate Black veteran at private event. SWAT reunion becomes civil rights standoff in North Carolina community. Private security firm under investigation for police impersonation in gated neighborhood. The fallout was swift. By week's end, the HOA president, Sandra Whitmore, had resigned for health reasons. The rest of the board followed suit in a special emergency vote, forced by furious residents, most of whom claimed to have known nothing about the incident, though Marcus remembered their silence well. Neighbors who had once crossed the street to avoid eye contact were now leaving apology notes in his mailbox. Some rang the bell with gift baskets. Others offered empty words. "We didn't realize," or "that wasn't right," or "we're not all like that." Marcus didn't respond to most of them, but he didn't slam the door either. Instead, when the community asked him to join the interim HOA board to help clean things up, he declined. He didn't want power. He wanted peace. He did, however, nominate someone else. Her name was Tanya Lewis, a Black Navy veteran and single mom who'd been quietly battling her own HOA infractions, fined for wind chimes, warned about a rainbow welcome mat, told her son's basketball hoop was unsightly. Marcus introduced her at the emergency meeting, said just one sentence. She knows what this neighborhood is and what it could be. Tanya got the votes. 2 Saturdays later, a new barbecue took place at Marcus's cabin. Smaller, quieter, but different in all the right ways. Families came, black, white, Asian, Latino. Kids played tag in the yard. Mrs. Bramley even brought a casserole and a folding chair. Marcus stood at his smoker, flipping ribs, with Ranger at his feet and Nina Simone on the speaker again. This time when people passed by, they waved. Some even stayed. Dee toasted Tanya with sweet tea and said, "This feel different to you?" Marcus nodded. "Feels earned." Carter raised a bottle. "To real badges." "To real family," Ruiz added. Marcus smiled, firelight dancing across his face. The past couldn't be erased. The wrong couldn't be undone. But for the first time since buying that cabin, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own neighborhood. As night fell and smoke curled into the trees once more, Marcus looked out over his land, his people, and said softly, "Some folks wear a badge. Others earn it. But respect? That's grilled into every bite."